Erica, and we're going to talk about stuff. Feel free to introduce yourself.
Oh, yes. Okay. Well, my name is Erica Crooks, and I'm an independent filmmaker and anarchist. I am a puppeteer, satirical
Oh,
puppeteer
cool.
of my own yeah, satirical puppet and animated series I've been doing for about 15 years now. And I also have links of my content as well as comics and other things and pop culture, spirituality, um,
hmm
that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's cool. Me as well. This is kind of impromptu, so we're a little we're a little out of sorts. But yeah, so what have you been doing lately? We met on the non-compete
Yes,
podcast. Yeah,
yes,
that's cool.
that would be that was called I think it was called Arts, Media, and the Internet, and that would be
Mm,
on Non Compete Live on YouTube, and on Twitch it would be Non Compete. And
yeah.
yeah, feel free to check that out. It's a really great stream, and it's not just limited to that. There's like a whole variety of topics that are discussed. It's a really good stream. Definitely
Mhm.
recommend people check it out.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, what? So let's change things though. We always talk about politics. What do you think about spirituality? Are you familiar with enlightenment? What's your view on that? What do you think that means?
Let's see. Well, for me, I'm into New Thought, New Age spirituality, and I pretty much got
Hmm.
into it through The Secret. For those who are
The book.
familiar with that, if it's through the movie or the book, Rhonda Byrne, um, Bob Proctor, and Jack Henfield, and that's basically how I got into that. And and so when I got into that, it was, I'm a very creative minded person, INFP
Hmm.
personality type, Myers Briggs. So I mean, on the plus side, there was definitely positive aspects of it. Not non hierarchical, you know,
Yeah.
belief structures and stuff. But unfortunately, on the other hand, there was kind of a sort of a liberal kind of toxic positivity aspect to it. Like there was like
Hmm.
sort of a pro capitalist sort of thing, and I didn't know at the time, so I sort of bought
Hmm.
into it, especially with Bob Proctor. I mean, he's really good with like personal growth and things like that. But when I got into anarchism a few years later, that's when I knew what capitalism is. Um,
Mm.
like I'm all for like law of
So you were
attraction
spiritual
things.
first, and then anarchist. Yeah, me too.
Yeah, but even before then, satirist, kind of
Hmm.
anti-establishment, anti-authoritarian cartoonist and puppeteer. So I mean, that definitely, led me the way to anarchism as well.
Your
Because
shorts are your things are pretty short. Do we want to show some on the show at some point, like later after the introductions?
um, well,
I feel
actually,
like that could
I,
be
I think
fun.
I
If
think it
not,
would
it's fine.
be I think it would be really good, maybe to share the links and stuff like that, because there's a whole bunch and things like
Yeah,
that,
I'll
and
put
there's
your stuff in the description.
because there's a whole variety of things. Because mainly the show just kind of changes around every year, so it's always kind of hard to tell, what the
Hmm.
best thing to show is, because the show always changes every year. Like the early stuff was a lot more slapstick, like back in 2007, it was kind of relating to, I mean, a lot of the show is kind of a satire on the social collapse of society, and kind of
Hmm.
taking that perspective and kind of making a portrait of that, and kind of balancing between the kind of the cartoon world and kind of mirroring, caricaturing it, reflecting it in this world,
Hmm.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I feel that that's what was like, the tradition of cartoon humor um in the past, most certainly. But today things are so different, things are so commodified, everything's kind of slice of life, sugar coated, kind of almost like a make you feel better about life kind of thing. But before,
Hmm.
art was about life and things like
Absolutely.
that.
Hmm. And for a long time, it was all about religion and stuff. That was how most art was propagated for a while. All the churches and everything like that, painting the things
And
and stuff.
definitely, and and also, around the 60s, what was interesting was it was kind of a sort of a cultural revolution in many, many ways. Not only the
Hmm.
civil rights movement, but definitely with art, and especially with spirituality. And that's basically kind of, sort of the origins of New Thought, New Age, kind of like with anarchism. Anarchism is definitely, there's definitely inspirations with
Hmm.
leftism, libertarian socialism, anarcho-communism. And then you have, New Thought, New Age, that they
Hmm.
kind of see the non-hierarchical aspects of religion. And it's kind of almost like
Well,
a
certain
reform.
religion, Western religion, and organized religion is typically rather hierarchical. It starts with God and then the priests and everything like that, which
Right.
is why the Enlightenment was very anti-religion. However, spirituality, which I think we can agree is sort of separate from religion because it's more. I
Yep.
mean, it's based on. I mean, ideally, religion would be based on reality too, but it's sort of just dogmatic. Whereas I think spirituality is a lot more open-minded and tends to be more, about understanding the universe and souls and our place within it, from a less rigid sort of, testable thing, which is unfortunately I find an issue with it. But have you heard of spirit science? They're the ones that got me into spirituality, or at least unlocked
Um,
my potential.
I'm not sure if that's
Here, I'll show you.
a specific title or something.
Yeah, no,
Do
spirit
you?
science is a YouTube channel. Hold on, I'll show you.
Oh,
Yeah,
because
just give me a minute. But yeah. Hmm.
but in
Sorry.
terms of signs like, say, angel numbers and synchronicities and telepathy, yeah,
Mhm.
most certainly. Um,
Yeah. Here, they. I'm trying to do this. Put my screen up. Yeah, they're on YouTube and stuff. It's this guy. You might have seen him around sometimes, but
yeah,
it's like a cartoon actually. But it's very a lot like what you do. It's very like silly, but it's also very actually informative. Especially I think the original ones because it was based off of the Flower of Life and stuff, which is this logo. Are you familiar with sacred geometry?
I don't think so. It kind of looks like
Oh, really?
it looks like spirit
Hmm.
science. I think that was the
That's
name
what I
of
said. Yeah.
another channel.
Yeah.
Almost.
Did you not hear me? That's what I
Oh,
was
that's
saying.
cool.
Spirit science was what got me into it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. I think there
that,
was some
yeah.
sort of miscommunication. Yeah, I love
Yeah,
them. I think they're great. That was
like I
my.
said, I'm a very, very like visual thinker. I
Mm,
pictures and usually like visually, like if I see something like, oh yeah, definitely, I would recognize it more than the
hmm.
words. So yeah,
Yeah, are you familiar with the Flower of Life?
no,
It's
but
very good. Yeah, so it's this shape. So sacred geometry is interesting because it is actually the structure of the universe. It's how like forces and atoms like work together. But it's been around for thousands of years. Like in Egypt was where it was first discovered. It was actually photographed on the wall of a temple, and a guy named Drumdwell Melchizedek made a book called "The Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life," which is funny. I always thought it was funny that they call it New Age. It makes sense because the age is shifting, but it's going back to a lot of old. Sort of beliefs and understanding, but using the modern sort of technology and things together. A lot of people think that technology is bad and taking us away from our spirituality, but it's not technology's fault. That's capitalism's fault. Capitalism is a very isolating and atomizing philosophy or system that brings us apart and makes us want to work on your own and bootstraps and all that good stuff.
it
Whereas
it
understanding it
gatekeeps. Yeah,
exactly,
definitely.
hierarchy, gatekeeps. Money is. I always say that money is actually it's more of a limit than anything else. Like all it does is decide what you can't do with it for most people because you don't have enough money. That's
It's
the
a
thing.
tool
It
of power,
actually
basically.
it makes sense because it's an idea. It's a sort of in like an easy value of exchange. In order to get things done. But I think ultimately it's unnecessary and becomes a greed and everything like that, which is why anarchism is great, because and communism, since they're synonymous, the moneyless, stateless, classless society based on mutual aid and democracy.
This looks familiar. Because I remember hearing something about infinity and stuff like that, and how it's endless.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
literally,
like that.
because it's actually it's how creation works. It's just bubbling out. It's just here. I'll look. Let's see, flower of life steps. So the way it works, it starts with a single circle. Basically, it starts with a point, which is like consciousness, and then it creates a bubble around itself. And then it creates a duplicate bubble, and it creates what's known as a Vesca Pisces, which is this sort of football eyeball shape. And this is actually what is being described in the 7 days of creation in the Bible, and many other religions, because this is the let there be light. When they sort of have the bubble and the Vesca Pisces, that is the creation of light. And then the Holy Trinity, and then the third day and fourth day. That's actually why it says days in this logo. It's funny that it actually says that. I don't know if you can read that on your computer because it may be a little small, but in the video it should be fine. Just make it full screen if you can't read it, or I can also zoom in. Or let's see.
I'm watching it at a small screen, so that's a lot better.
Yeah, can you read that better? Yes, make definitely. It better for you.
Oh yeah, much better.
Let's see. Maybe I can do it like this.
Oh yeah, that works. Thank you. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And on the sixth day, they say he rested because what this did is created what's known as the seed of life, which is you're familiar with fractals, right?
No.
The term fractal? Oh wow. Okay. I love doing this. So fractals, you definitely know what fractals are. You just haven't heard the word before. So you are introduced into spirituality through the secret, right? The sort of sending out of messages, and so that they return, the intention, right? Manifestation and whatnot.
Yes.
Yes. So spirituality is actually much more than that. The reason that works is because what is consciousness, but basically, self-awareness, right? The ability to think and understand your environment. And that is where free will comes from. Free will is, we have the ability to think and make decisions. Like I decided to reach out to you, and we decided to have this podcast today. So that is a form of intention. What you're doing, what the secret is actually trying to tell you to do, is literally harnessing potential energy. Like, how potential energy, scientifically, they usually mean it gravitational potential energy. When a rock is on top of something else, or a cup is on the side of your, desk, it might fall off. The energy that it creates from falling. But potential energy is literally just, anything that might happen. It's literally, quantum physics is based on the sort of the probability wave. You familiar with the double slit experiment, or what quantum physics kind of is, right? You've heard of it before, obviously.
I have heard of quantum physics. Yeah, like there was a book called I'm forgetting the book a little bit, but something called U square or something like that. I know I have the book somewhere.
U square, like YOU squared.
Yeah, it's like this very short book, and it's like gray, and it costs $10. That's it. That's the book.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. A high velocity formula for multiplying your personal effectiveness. Let's see what they are. Let's see, U squared. Let's see what their thing is. So we can try to get like a.
There's a story I do remember from it. I got to get another copy eventually, but
I like audiobooks. I don't know where
mine is.
Yeah, and digital books and things like that. Have you heard of the happiness hypothesis? That's another one. I really like that one. What were you saying?
I'm sorry. A story that I remember from U Squared that's really, really interesting was the story symbolically of the two flies and the closed window, and the goal. One of them, basically both want to get out. Now one of them keeps slamming themselves against the window just endlessly. Bang, 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 bang. And then eventually that fly wears out and dies. The other fly uses critical thinking and realizes that on occasion people are going to open that door, and that door is going to open itself to a path to freedom. So that
Yes, but
fly
you have to
waits
open
and
it
then
first.
goes. Oh, but
Hmm.
the fly waits until the door opens, and then boom, it flies as fast as it can right out that
Hmm.
door. So
Absolutely.
so basically, it kind of has that, it leaves with that thought,
Hmm.
to
You
think
must
about
be.
it critically.
Hmm. You have to, be patient for the window to open. If the window's closed, just because you can see it doesn't mean you're there. And I think that that's how psychedelics kind of work. They sort of, they're like imagine most of the time the window is got a curtain over it, and you sort of like you don't see it anyway because we're stuck in ourselves, and capitalism keeps us very disconnected from the rest of reality. And so what psychedelics may do usually are they provide a sort of a window that you may see through. But in order to actually go through it, you must in fact wait, open the window, and then fly through, as you were saying.
I've heard about, like, psychedelics, as in, psychedelic drugs, right? Is
Yes,
that what you mean?
or plant medicine, whatever you want to call it. It's
Yeah.
illegal right now, most of them, but they are incredibly helpful. They're much better in my opinion, and from studies that when used properly, they're way better than like Prozac and things like that for mental health and things.
Oh,
Which is
yeah.
precisely why they were outlawed, because they make you question the status quo, and so they were outlawed in the '60s by Nixon and everybody, which was fantastic.
Yeah, I
Capitalism
mean, I
itself.
don't touch the stuff myself, but I
You don't
guess
have to.
I use like my intuition, basically,
Hmm.
to go about visualize, because
Do
I'm
you smoke
always
weed?
terrified. No, I don't. I'm always terrified of anything. I don't even drink. I'm always
Really?
terrified that it's going to harm my mind, and I always feel that
Hmm.
the mind and, intuition and everything is the most precious, uh you know thing about,
Do you like to read?
humanity. Oh yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. I
Yeah,
mean,
if you like to read, I very much recommend you go to this website called Time Traveler. I found this by Googling one time. Uh, Open-eyed meditation, because I was interested in what that might entail, and it has a course at the beginning of it. What you do is, it looks very old, but it's actually very interesting, because what they say is this is information literally brought from the future through like meditation. After we figured everything
oh,
out and we understood things, they projected themselves and gathered the information true. Now, whether that's true or not, of course, is up to you and up for debate. However, I have found that reading this website is
time
they
travel.
work in excerpts. Um, they are. Can you see it, or is it
Yeah,
small
yeah.
stuff? Okay, so it's again, their website could use a little updating
Hmm.
visually, but the information is like timeless. What it does is it literally, what if time travel is a universal process of unfoldment that is taking place even now all around us without our knowledge? Wouldn't its presence be easily recognized by the necessary, profound, metamorphic resultant changes in our neighbors? Flowery, blah blah blah. Or are we blind to these superhuman visitors due to perhaps protective limitations in our 3D awareness? What's interesting is I actually created an audiobook of the first, I think, 6 or 7 um, excerpts, because it is so powerful. It's literally one of the like top things in my spiritual journey. I would not be myself
Oh.
if it was not for this. I created a playlist in my, let's see, created playlists, spirituality. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. But anyway, so yeah, these are some videos I made. So anyway, open eye meditation. It's on my channel. You can watch it. This is the first video. It's me. You know, Anyway, so it was made on my phone. But anyway, what I did was I created this playlist called Manifesting Universal Consciousness, where what I did was I took the stuff from this website, and I put I added some pictures and stuff, but I put a voice over it. I put
Hmm.
a what's it called? I don't know if could you hear that? When I played
No.
the video, did you hear it?
Oh,
No, you didn't hear it. Oh,
the video's on
video.
mute.
Yes, it is on mute now. But if I did it, can you hear it? Can you hear it or no?
No, I can't.
No, you couldn't? Okay, let's see. I don't know why that is. I don't normally use, let's see, audio output. Let's see, advanced settings. Oh, perhaps it was for the stream. Oh, somebody said something. Psychedelics are commonly referred as mind-altering drugs, but they don't actually alter your mind. They are perspective-altering drugs. That is absolutely true. I think they do alter your mind in a certain, like as any sort of, mood-altering substance would. Anything from, heroin to coffee are also mood-altering, psychoactive chemicals. They're drugs of any kind. Even like a melatonin or an Advil is a type of drug, which alters your brain. But yes, these are perspective-altering drugs indeed. Leapfrog is absolutely correct. Psychedelia is the future of medication and depression and addiction. This person is absolutely correct. I 100% agree, because they really are, when used properly with a therapist. I don't know why I couldn't think of that word, but I was like the person who you go to see the doctor that helps with your shrink. Anyway, a therapist, when properly used. There's a great video on Netflix called something about mushrooms, like Fantastic Fungi or something like that, which is absolutely, it talks about just mushrooms, mycelium, and everything, and at the end they talk about psychedelics and their power to help with depression and anxiety and everything. I highly recommend. Unfortunately, because of the it's only been stigmatized because it's such a good thing, and it can dismantle the status quo under capitalism and things like that. The only reason that they say it's bad, and but they are like heavy machinery, in the sense that if someone who was not prepared got in behind the wheel of a car and you didn't know how to drive, you could cause all kinds of damage to yourself and others. Same thing with psychedelics. However, when you are properly licensed and and driving on a road with good reason, under good restrictions, in that same way, if you use psychedelics properly and with a good sitter and in the right context, there are studies that it stops. One session with magic mushrooms stopped people from smoking for 6 months. Just a single session. If they had a regular session every couple months or so, they would probably stop smoking for life, and the impacts on psychotherapy would be unbelievable, immeasurable. It would be night and day. So but going back to what I said before, spirituality specifically, this timetravelers.org thing is fantastic, and I made, like I said, a spirituality playlist. Which starts with my videos, what is enlightenment, and the philosophy of Zenyatta. I'm not sure if are you familiar with Zenyatta from Overwatch?
No, I'm not.
Okay, well, regardless, it's a video game. I'll show you. He's really cool. So his name is Zenyatta. But anyway, if anyone's interested, particularly you, Erica, it out. I highly recommend it, because again, it's not me. It's just an audiobook I've made of the thing, similar to Spirit Science, but without the cartoon. But anyway, this is the guy Zenyatta. He is he's a fictional character who's like a Zen Buddhist robot, which I think is the fucking coolest idea ever. Because think about it. He is a machine that understands that he is a spiritual machine, that he is a spiritual being, that he is alive, and therefore has a soul. And basically, he decided he had his own soul. Let's see. The CIA realized back in the 60s and 70s that psychedelics have a lot of potential. Then they realized it has an anti-capitalist slant to it, and projects, and added it to something else. The pantheon of their culture war and the drug war. Yeah, literally the only reason that are stigmatized and that they might worsen condition is because they are illegal and stigmatized, propagandized to become way worse than what they actually are. They under an anarchist society, they would be probably everywhere. Everybody would be using them at least once, because they would literally, again, not being forced to use them, but they would be optional and highly encouraged, because they are amazing. They help you understand yourself, and you can help you view the world around it, because what they literally do is, sort of intellectually that you are the universe. Like, you literally cannot exist with universe without also being the universe. Of our egos, we feel separate. That's why it's so easy to control us and put us on some things. So, but what psychedelics do is they turn down your ego. They sort of mute it. People, you might have heard the term ego death before. I don't really like that, because
yes.
I don't really like that term, because it doesn't die, it comes back. But you are off.
True.
Anyone could be changed potentially. Yeah. So what it does is it sort of, and more will do a more powerful job, and less will do less. So what it does is volume control. The more you add, the more it turns down your ego, and the louder the universe's vibes does, and it melts that wall of disconnection that your brain makes. And there's a valid reason that you evolved your ego. If it wasn't for your ego, we would not right now. What your ego... Think about life for a second. In order for life to exist, what is life but chemistry, really? You eat, and it creates, energy for you to move around, and you eat and sleep and do everything. And basically, life is just a form of both really high and really low entropy at the same time. Entropy is really just like sort of like they say it's chaos, but entropy is more just like mixing things. It's how like a really high entropy image would just... Entropy is when you have a hot coffee and it starts to mix and turn cold. Eventually, you may have heard of the heat death of the universe, right? How the universe may end.
Let's see. I heard several things. Like I've heard like something kind of similar to what you're saying, like almost kind of like like positive energy, negative energy, kind of creating almost kind of like a Big Bang kind of thing, sort of mixing each other in a way.
It started with the Big Bang,
the Earth and stuff like that.
All things multidimensional. Yeah, dimensions are actually just spaces. Here, let's see. X, Y plane. So dimensions, you may have heard. Oops, I spelled it wrong, but it knows what I mean. So basically, you may have heard of creatures from like the 50s movies or something like that. But literally, what a dimension is
green
just
slime.
Green slime.
Green
Yes, exactly.
slime.
So what dimensions are is just a set of two directions that are at 90 degrees to all other dimensions, so that you can move through one without moving through any other. However, you typically move through more than one at once. So let's look at the x-axis. See, in the square, there's the x-axis that goes left and right. Now it cuts off at the square, but potentially, mathematically, this x-axis goes left and right infinitely, both directions. You could go you could go to the left infinitely, right? You could imagine that. Potentially, mathematically, you could go from, negative, you could go from 0 to negative infinity and 0 to positive infinity without ever going up and down on the y-axis. But that doesn't mean that the y-axis doesn't exist. So a single dimensional line is the x-axis. Let's see. Dimensional cubes. So basically, the way dimensions work... let's see. Yeah, here. So you start... A one dimension is a line segment. A 2D square is a square. A 3D square is a cube. Now this looks like, a hexagon, but it's just a square when you're looking at the corner. Does that make sense? It's a cube, but you're looking at it from the corner. Does that make sense? Think of like a 3D.
A side view.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's what the rest of these dimensional representations are. So what they are is let's go back to the what was it? Yeah, the XY plane. So, you have the left and right x-axis and the up and down y-axis, and then you have the forward and back z-axis, and that creates 3 dimensions. However, you need the 4th dimension of time, which is forward in time and backwards in time. Because, even if you have... Think of the universe as a film reel. From the Big Bang to the end of the universe, it is like a movie, and experiencing it in 3D is like watching the movie. Whereas if you owned the movie or had the reels, you could pick any single frame of the movie you wanted. So think of those frames as a 3D frame of the universe. Every second or whatever is just like a snapshot of the universe. That would be a 3D example. So when you take all those snapshots and you line them up and you move through them, that is 4th dimensional moving. Or it's like 3D experiencing of the universe. But if you were 4D and spiritual, because I think spirituality is actually a soon-to-be perhaps antiquated term that instead of meaning religious stuff, it actually means consciousness on higher dimensions.
Yes.
Because you can only use free will if your mind is beyond dimensional, because if you think of the 4D as a single film of the universe, the 5D is where alternate universes come in. And instead of a line, it becomes a tree. And, all the infinite universes come in together, where again, where I have green skin or whatever, or, you were born somewhere else, or it's just the same, but there's only one atom difference, all that good stuff. And so what free will does is it allows you to choose, provided that you are linked by causality. I can't just think and then blink myself somewhere else. But given the circumstances that I have, I can create a future in which, this morning, my, events led up to me using my free will to reach out to you and create the situation where we started streaming. And you were able to respond, and so you chose that. There's a perfectly valid, you could predict where if I never texted you today, that we would just not be having this conversation. Right?
Yep, so everything is energy.
Exactly.
And then like-minded energy attracts each other, like magnets.
Yes, and it also repels itself too, like magnets. Yes. And actually, understanding magnetism is a huge part of spirituality and sacred geometry, because what a magnetic field looks like is what's known as a torus. Toroidal, or rather a toroidal field. Toroidal fields are basically how the universe works. This is like a magnet. If you put a magnet on the ground and you surrounded it by metal stuff, this would create the thing. Here, I can even show you specifically magnetic field. Oops, I didn't hit the D. But yeah, so the Earth creates a magnetic field. This is a bar magnet. I'm looking for one with iron shavings, but you understand what I'm saying, right? Yeah, this is how magnets work, and that's why they pull and push each other together. So see how this is actually a great example, because they each have their own magnetic field, and then this south pole is attracting this north pole, and think of it like a flow that's going in this direction, right? It's going up through here and coming out and coming back, or the other way, going in and then out. In and out. So what that does is that's why when you have a magnet with the two dipole magnetic field, the north goes to the south and the south to the north, and they repel each other when they're together. Because think of them like straws that are being blown into, right? If you put two straws that are blowing out together, they will avoid each other. But if you put one that's blowing through, and then you put another straw on it, and they blow through together, they just become a longer straw. You understand? And so when you put two blowing together, they repel because they're blowing on each other. However, that doesn't work exactly, because that would mean that the south pole is sucking in, and two sucking in would come together too. However, they both repel. So it is not a perfect analogy, but it kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah, I mean, even with like curly straws in a way too. Because
they show
designed and everything.
They show more like realistic magnet. Oh, here's one with bar magnets and showing the result of the Earth's magnetic field in here. So yeah, this is a magnet with iron shavings, literally showing the toroidal field of the magnet. And then there's an example of the Earth. So, but what's interesting is magnetics aren't perfect. This is the Earth's magnetic field. And see how it's all twisted and tangled and everything? The reason the Earth has a magnetic field is because it basically has a heart. It has, in the core of the Earth, is a molten lava made up primarily of iron, iron being magnetic. Since it's constantly moving around and magnetic, it's creating a giant magnetic field. But it's moving around kind of like it's chaotic. And that is what consciousness is kind of like. It's kind of like a magnetic field, but it has its own unique, like you could infinite different versions of this shape. Like you could just bend in different ways, right? You could perhaps imagine infinite different ways of rearranging all these magnetic field lines. Correct, right? You could picture that? Yeah, imagine, definitely. Yeah. Literally, you could spend your entire life just drawing different versions, even if they're just a tiny bit different. But that is, but there's infinitely more of reality to do that. You can create art that looks nothing like this, which is why some infinities are bigger than other infinities. Like the infinite between 0 and 1 is infinite, but it is much smaller than the infinite between 0 and 2, and then 0 and 10, and 0 and 100, which is how toruses work. They create different layers and they stack on each other. Which goes back. Yeah, it's very dense because I didn't realize where we were starting at. So that goes back to what fractals are, which are the patterns of repeating shapes. They look complex, but what they are is they're just the same pattern over and over in and forever. I'll show you fractals in nature. So fractals are universe is essentially made of. I'm not sure what that is, but it looks like sort of an under. These are real plants. You've probably seen a plant similar to this outside your house. It's kind of a Where's Waldo effect. Once you know what fractals are, you can see them everywhere. These are mostly fractals in plants, but there's also the nautilus shell is the big one because it follows very closely to the Fibonacci's. But even the branches of a tree are fractals. Because if you think about it, what it starts is with this one singular trunk, and then it branches off to two smaller trunks that are pretty much the same, but they're smaller, and they, keep branching and branching and branching. And, a tree with branches looks pretty much like, let's see, lungs, veins. What is the difference really between a tree and your circulatory system?
Oh,
that's what a lung looks like. Yeah, and then yeah, and look at this, universe and brain cells. The entire universe is just fractals. This is a picture of a brain cell that has been cut out. What all models of the universe predict it to look like, zoomed out really, really far. Yeah. Each of these lights are galaxies. Yeah. And what's crazy is, let's see, look, Taurus. Let's see, I spelled Taurus wrong. Taurus, not like Taurus, like the bull, but Taurus. They're different things. Toroids. I'm gonna try it. Let's see, toroids. Oh, Taurus nature. That's what I'm gonna do. Oh my gosh, us nature. Okay. So they are magnetic fields, and these are examples of different toruses. This is an atom. That's a tree here. I'll view it in simpler. This is actually not even the best one, but that's what a galaxy does. Essentially, what a galaxy does is it's a spiral that goes in the middle, which is like a 2D slice of a torus, and it actually does shoot out energy. What are they called? Storm systems are toruses. Yes, hurricanes are toruses. Trees, like we said, are actually toruses in addition to being fractals, because if you include their roots underneath, they are literally a mirror image of their branches in the sky, but without leaves. So you could imagine that they eventually sort of wrap around to each other. They sort of, like energetically do so. They're just two different versions of the branching. And then, of course, apples are also toruses as well. Oranges are another version of toruses with different things. These are cells. This is viewed from above. So what's interesting about toruses is that you can view them. Oh, this is the one I was looking for. Yes. So this is about sacred geometry and the universe, although it actually doesn't show as many as what it usually does. But this here, if you can kind of see, it's in low quality, but see how that's the seed of life again?
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, the flower of life is actually a torus. Let's see, I'll show you. Flower of life torus. That's not at all what I said. Let's see. Yeah, I spelled it flower like cookie flour. I can't believe fleur of life. So anyway, yes. So a torus donut shape that goes up and down and creates a spiral all around it. But if you viewed a torus from above, it would look like this. And going back to the idea of the infinite like variation, even though it's all the same thing. This is how toruses work. You can imagine this like a frequency. This is what sound looks like when it radiates out. It's vibrations. Yeah.
Yes.
So the thing is, vibrations can, when in harmony, this is what the secret is trying to say. What the secret is by emanating things and creating these manifestations and what are they called? Affirmations. You are sending out a frequency, a pattern of your personal toroidal energy. And you could make your torus look like anything. But the thing is, most of the time, it looks like scribbles. These are, this is a really out of like chaotic torus. When you visualize and imagine yourself to sort of attune yourself to these vibrations, this is what the secret is trying to tell you what to do. Once you do this, this is actually the vibrational like frequency of creation, of life, of love. And love literally is a frequency that has a vibration, that unconditional love. There are 5 types of love. I made a video about it, but I took it down. I'm going to make a remake. But the first one is romantic love. That's the one people usually think of when they think of love. The second one is familial / platonic love. That is, there is a difference between your family and your friends, but they are the same idea. The friends are the family that you choose. And then the middle one is self-love, the love that most people neglect. That is the love that you must remember, because they say treat others the way you want to be treated, but don't forget to then treat yourself as if you were anyone else. Yes. That's the thing that people forget. And then fourth is what's known as tribal love, which is where anytime you see somebody who has something in common. I usually use the example of sports teams. Like if you are going, or like you go down the street, you see a shirt of a band you like. You don't know anything about that person except that they probably listen to that band, and you see that shirt and you go, hey, I know them. That is tribal love. Basically when you have something in common, and it gets stronger the more, tribalistic you get. That is sort of the weakest form of it, but a stronger form of it is when you're in a bar and you're all friends and you're going to see the sports team that you like. That's an example of a big tribal thing. And each love has its, like a magnet, has its positive and negative, dipole version of itself, like a yin yang. The yin yang is also a torus. I literally, you could actually see it in this example. It's very, like I said, low quality, but next to the Nautilus shell, this is the yin-yang symbol. And it comes from toroidal. What it is these 2 dots spiraling and rotating around each other. And so what they do, and so everyone has its positive and negative one. So there's tribal love, and then finally the last one is universal love, which is spiritual love. That is the love that is, I exist, I love everything unconditionally. That is the one where you forget about yourself but you realize that you are in fact everything. That is the ego, like that's what people call ego death, and a spiritual experience. You feel connected to everything, you are everything, and you choose love. Yes. Because unlike most emotions, which are typically negative, but not all of them, our emotions are power, you have to choose love. You can live in that vibration, but you can also, and you also have to choose hatred, but it's much easier to choose hatred because it's very egoic and simple, and the ego was invented. The ego evolved as a secondary level of the life thing. So let me go back to the flower of life. A very interesting thing is once you start with the seed of life and you multiply the seed of life around a few times, you get the flower of life. Here's a more simple example. And if you'll notice, all flowers of life representations have this edge. What that edge is actually the egg of life. It is actually the egg cell. When life is created at the moment of conception, this is what happens. Let's see. Flower of life cells. Nope. Celtic is another thing, because again, we're going back to them being ancient knowledge. So yes, this is not a great example, but here's a better one. So when you are born, this one even starts with the point. So here we're zoomed in. So you start with that. Hold on. Let's see if I can find a better version. Here, this one's a little different. It's in color, but you here's the one I usually use. So yes, the flower of life starts as a circle. That's the egg with the egg cell. And then once the cells, fertilize, then within that ovum, within that flower of life barrier, I don't have one anymore now, but within this barrier, I'm going to delete this one. Don't need this one, or do I need this one? I'll use that one later maybe. But yeah, so that's the barrier that is life. What life is the universe creating a barrier so that chemistry can happen within that barrier, so that the universe can experience itself from within itself.
Mm-hmm.
Life is the sensory organs of the universe, because this is the thing that enlightenment definitionally is the understanding that you are the universe. Science say we are star stuff. We are from dust to dust. There are many ways to say it. Even though what our egos are is a mental version of this. Your ego is, even within your body, creating another barrier. The ego is you that is behind your eyes, in your head, controlling your body. Like, your body is your body. That is your vehicle. But what really is Erica's soul, Erica's mind, your ego. Without egos, we wouldn't be, they're your personality. So egos are actually a good thing. But the reason that you need to mute your ego is to realize that most life doesn't have a very strong ego, or rather isn't self-aware of itself. It doesn't really have an ego. It just knows that it has to protect itself, which is where the ego comes from. It's a very primitive version of because if we were tripping all the time and just like we would die. There wouldn't be, there's like, tripping is great because it reminds you, but in order for your life to, in order to keep your body alive, your life had to develop that sort of internal barrier that makes it, that artificial illusion that we are separate. But we are made of everything that everything else is made of. And so the different steps of the flower of life equate to literal steps of conception. And this is... this is what ancient peoples were describing when they carved these images of the flower of life all over the planet. The ancient world knew that this was what it was. Eventually, what happened was we started to sort of forget, because toruses are always flowing, and time is even a torus. It moves in a toroidal field. So there are times, just like when you're awake and when you go to sleep, we are consciously awake and then we are consciously asleep. We are just waking up from a time of consciousness sleeping. Mm-hmm. Now, the thing is, if we don't now the thing about waking up is you don't always want to do it. Your alarm goes off, but you hit snooze. However, in this case, there are people who realize that we're asleep and are having, let's say, really good dreams where they are taking over the world and exploiting everybody, and they like that. So they don't want to actually wake up to reality. They want to keep dreaming. So they're going to do whatever we can to keep us from waking out of bed by, ironically, not letting us sleep and making it work all the time and creating, capitalism and all that stuff. But, so what happened was hierarchy, egoic sort of selfishness and envy, part of human nature, created our society and dismantled us from the universe. We have, but all it is just another barrier. We had to go through this time to create another barrier in order to then now explore the universe. We needed to create humanity so that we could construct it's called Christ consciousness, which is where, Jesus Christ gets his name. But in order to do it, we must, choose to do it. We become a super organism of humanity. Otherwise, but if we don't do that, we'll just die. And, we'll be lost, just like all other times it seems to have happened. Now, the thing about death, though, is because we are the universe, we aren't just Earth. We aren't just humans. We're also the whole universe, which is mostly dead. Because, again, most of the universe is actually empty space. That's just part of fractalization of everything. Atoms are mostly empty space. Molecules are mostly empty space. Our bodies are mostly water. It's actually how webs work. going back to, see, the flower of life, it has a lot of surface area, but it takes up almost no space. Like it has very little area in terms of because it has all those holes in it and everything. There's very little material that makes it up. That's why brains look like the universe, because the universe is mostly empty space, but bubbles and branches are how you create a lot of surface area without taking up a lot of space. And that is what, the universe mostly is. Here's another great example of actual real ancient carvings from all over the planet. They do not say, I've seen many of them before. The one under the tigers is in China. I believe this is the one from Egypt. Cultures that did not contact each other. These ones are from, I believe, Turkey or Middle Eastern areas. I don't know where this one is from. And this one, I believe, might be Celtic or another sort of Middle Eastern, Mesopotamia area, like the Fertile Crescent. From the beginning, we knew what this was. Now, this, in my opinion, is either proof of psychedelic use, and probably both, or also some evidence for the theory that we were genetically manipulated a long time ago from monkeys to, for the Anunnaki and stuff.
Yeah, I was going to mention that actually, because I mean, because I've heard of a couple of things, because right before I got into anarchism, I would hear things about New World Order conspiracy theories, but because there's different versions of it. But once there's hate, when hate was mentioned in these conspiracy theories, I'm out. I would think about it in a non-hateful way,
Exactly.
And
it is the enemy of spirit. I'm sorry to interrupt. The enemy of love is fear and hatred, and that's where the hate comes from. Fear. QAnon hijacked a lot of spiritual things. The thing about Republicans and conservatives is they're very conspiratorial, because again they are creating the system. Because again, all the time, whenever reactionaries try to describe the left, what they're the place they get all those wild and crazy evil ideas is from themselves. It's because that's what they would do. That's why they say, they're evil, and they wish us dead. They want to indoctrinate your children. They just want to control you. They want to create genocide. They're literally just looking in the mirror, writing down what they see, and then instead of saying themselves, they say the left, or socialism, or communism, all that stuff.
Because that's basically where fear comes from. If someone is alienated and isolated, they're not going to think positive thoughts about people. They're
absolutely
gonna, think the world's against them and everything, and it depends on the individual. But if someone writes it down and to the point where they preach it as truth, and then other people believe it, it's kind of, and it's it catches on, and that's the thing is
ContraPoints. You're familiar with?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Her newest video, Envy, is a masterpiece. I've only seen half of it, but it is absolutely true, because that is where all of this elitism comes in. It's the fear of it's the master slave. Have you seen the old philosophy tube, the master slave dialectic?
I haven't, but I definitely have seen a couple of the philosophy tube videos.
Yes, philosophy tube is great. Hey, it's us. Let's see, philosophy tube. I looked at the African philosophy, but philosophy tube master. This was back before she came out. Yeah, so this video I recommend, because it's a little hard to understand, but it's where that idea comes from. Basically, the idea is that the master must put down the slave, because that is the only way they can feel alive. They put all of their dislike on themselves, from themselves. They project it onto the slave, and they must dominate in order to, justify their existence in their own mind. Because deep down, they feel inadequate. They feel like they only exist if they are on top of things, which is a negative side effect of the ego, which, was, again, like I said, evolved to keep the body alive. But now it has sort of become maladaptive now that we've become consciousness and self-conscious and created society. It has its vestigial sort of, like a left, a vestigial limb or whatever, it's become kind of, it's not quite a, what's the word? Like the organs that, like, I'm trying to think, the one that can get infected, like the little gut thing, but appendix or whatever. It's like your appendix, but not quite, because it is still, the thing about egos is they are your personality, but they become maladaptive when you think that they are everything. And actually, it's funny because it actually comes from the fact that we are everything. But the thing is, because temporarily, while you are alive, you cut yourself off to, for your body to stay alive from the rest of the universe, you think that you are the entire universe. That's how babies start out. They are, everything. And that's why, they're.
It's like, emotional intelligence, having empathy and
Absolutely.
sympathy for others, and like, I guess, in terms of ego and soul, I guess my definitions are probably a little different, because I guess the way how I define soul and ego is like, soul means, empathy and sympathy for others, and when you don't have that, then
that's
you
why you
lead to
become
this evil, yeah. And and there's like just many examples of that, most certainly, because when people, like, they just can't, like, understand other people, it kind of takes away just that meaning of life and humanity, and even understanding of humor, the understanding of
Absolutely, yeah.
art, and I noticed this not only with division in terms of politics, but also culture as well, and even personalities, because like, I'm into, like, personality types, but they say that personality is a social construct. But what's very interesting, especially what an anarchist FAQ has to say, is this hierarchical system numbs out intuition, critical thinking,
Absolutely.
creativity, and empathy and sympathy for others. Like, there's also books I still need to read, like The Mass Psychology of Fascism and The Authoritarian Personality, and they kind of all point that
Yep.
out. It's like authoritarianism, capitalism, and all these hierarchical structures, they purposely destroy, like, what makes human being, which is consciousness and all the things
Humanity.
we're
Yeah.
mentioning. And this creates people to become definitely slaves, so the capitalist ruling classes can control and do whatever they want. So people, when they think of happiness and stuff like that, it's this very superficial sort of vision. It's kind of like, at a certain age, you get married to whoever's available, whoever's attractive, and then you work at a certain job, and then you get, like, a house and things like that. You have kids because society says you're supposed
That's
to.
what you're supposed to do. Yeah.
And then they take care of you, and then eventually you're dead. The end. And so it's like, as long as, or people with religion and things like that, and people feel safe knowing, if they know everything, even though it's not really like the full answers, if they just feel like they know the answers, they feel a lot more safer, and then they can just go back to work and things, even though they're not. And I think that's why people feel kind of defensive when these
Absolutely.
ideas are challenged, because it's
because
like,
it's an assault on their ego. Exactly.
Right.
You're literally, it's like pain. You're harming their ego. You're bruising their ego, literally. And what they do is, because your ego is designed to keep you alive, it has a defense mechanism when it feels wounded to, attack. And that is, the spiritually speaking, that is what is known as duality versus unity, like consciousness. Christ consciousness and universal love is unity consciousness, where you go back, and it's, the universal love, like the fifth type of love that I was describing, because what happens is duality exists within unity. That is how the flower of life literally works, because the only way to create duality is to have it within unity. You have to separate yourself from it. However, if the foundation is duality, eventually it becomes destroyed, because there's nothing left, because all you're doing is separating and saying, I'm not that, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not you, until you're nothing. Whereas unity is, I am everything. Even if I don't approve of it, I still am. I just, I don't like it, which is why that's why duality, us and them, always leads to destruction and negativity, because it's all about, they feel their only purpose is to destroy the other, but there is no other. Eventually it is you, and so they destroy yourself. When your purpose is to destroy, eventually you die. Eventually you become destroyed.
And there's also like many different forms of emotional manipulation, not only the right, but also liberalism as well. Like, because of course with Trump, there was like this whole almost kind of felt like this movement where I don't know, maybe I kind of felt like maybe there could possibly be this unity of leftism and liberalism, because both just dislike Trump. And then when Joe Biden came in, the progressives,
turns out,
the liberals, they all flocked to Biden. And I think it's one of those things about being, awakened, to class consciousness and kind of seeing things from an anarchist point of view. And then those who don't, because it's like,
anarchist is a unified point of view. Anarchism is, we're all together, mutual aid, we all work together. Whereas fascism is the ultimate form of duality. It's it's the ultimate us and them. And that's why, unfortunately, while unity contains everything, fascism is the weeds that exist, but they must be stamped out. Because the reason fascism destroys itself is because it says this is not allowed. But within unity, you can say that exists, but we choose not to do it. Fascism exists within anarchism, but we don't do it. Whereas fascism just destroys everything. It says, instead of saying it's something we choose not to do, we get rid of it. So, you burn the garden in order to get rid of weeds.
Right.
So there's no progress at all.
Like when I see like Joe Biden, it's like different from when people see it, like, because there would be a lot of people who would just like, they would believe in Joe or whatever he's saying. But what I see, and I most certainly caricatured Joe Biden as kind of this kind of priest, kind of this very preachy person who's like, like, God bless America, and just malarkey. All this like, America, love America, and things, and
work together.
There was like, things where he was like trashing leftism, where he was like saying, let me ask you this or something like that. Do I look like a radical socialist with a soft spot for rioters? Really? I want to save America. And but
have you heard of horseshoe theory?
I heard a little bit. Rational Wiki, I read about it in Rational Wiki.
Horseshoe theory is a fallacy. What actually exists is what's known as fishhook theory. If you insist, because horseshoe theory comes from the fallacious idea of the 2D left-right spectrum, where they think that the left is more government and the right is less government, because that's the dimension that they're choosing to do. When in actuality, politics is more than one-dimensional. It's at least two-dimensional. You obviously, I'm sure, seen the political compass.
But definitely.
So the thing about that's funny. This is fishhook turned into literally into fish into horseshoe theory. But what fishhook theory is it is, I'm not showing you the thing. Hold on. Let me share my screen again. I apologize. So fishhook theory is the more accurate version of horseshoe theory, where the centrist, so-called liberal far is actually a lot more accepting of the far right than they are of the far left, even though they claim to be the center. Because, like you said with Joe Biden, he says he's in the middle, but all he's doing is placating the fascists. He has absolutely no interest in placating the left, because the liberals are capitalism. They are just, they want capitalism. And in order to keep capitalism, you can
Mhm.
only, the only people you can get along with are the far right. Now, they don't necessarily like capitalism either, but capitalism being a hierarchical right wing sort of like economic system, it goes, you can't be a centrist and be a capitalist. A centrist, a true centrist would be a socialist, where you, or, a social democrat, like, like the Nordic regions where you say capitalism is good, but it takes money to make money.
Mhm.
And the thing about that is that it doesn't work because you still have the limiting barriers of money, which is why communism is the goal of getting rid of money and no longer needing it. Because as long as you have money, you still have people who can't afford things. Whereas under anarchism, if you want to make something, it has to be created, but you have to actually make it. Under capitalism, you have to buy it, but in order to buy it, you have to make money. And obviously, you can have inherited wealth, and inherited wealth destroys capitalism because it eventually takes that wealth away from those who do not inherit it.
I remember seeing like there was like a meme or a picture of someone
Mm-hmm.
writing on a dollar bill, and someone writes, "I am a piece of paper that controls your entire life." And that
Literally.
basically states what capitalism is, because it's
Mm-hmm.
like what
It's
makes
the worship of
things.
money.
Yeah, because it's
Mm-hmm.
like what makes things, and people think money. No, it's people and material to make
Labor creates
things.
things.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. I
yeah.
mean, even without the materials don't do it on their own. It's the labor. It's labor plus the ability to do it, and that's what anarchism is. Is it's organizing labor to create what we actually want through mutual aid and democracy, rather than there's no democracy in capitalism because you vote with your wallet, whereas under anarchism you vote with your ideas.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I was gonna kind of mention about like with Joe Biden, because it's kind of going back to the whole thing where it's like I can kind of see right through him versus
Mm-hmm.
people who just kind of take in everything he says, and it's kind of dangerous because there's the whole thing about
Mm-hmm.
where he would say that like certain kind of like anarchist extremists are a bunch of
Mm-hmm.
violent domestic
Yeah. Antifa is
extremist
the real
terrorists
fascists.
and stuff
Yeah.
like that. However,
Mm-hmm.
like the FBI stated in 2010 that
Mm-hmm.
basically not so-called non-violent anarchism is okay, so
Much more
philosophy
popular.
is legal, so it's almost kind of
Yeah,
they're contradicting themselves,
that's great.
but Nixon, however, Nixon would like kind of like Nixon
Mm-hmm.
like
Very
went after
anti-anarchist.
John Lennon just for being
Mm-hmm.
associated with the Yippies, and the Yippies
Yeah.
was a cultural anarchist group, and
Hmm.
and
It's
just
very
for playing,
60s, the Yippies.
and they were
Mm-hmm.
playing a concert for John Sinclair, who
Mm-hmm.
was in prison for marijuana possession, and immediately John Lennon considered John Lennon as a part of his enemies list, just because he was playing music for a benefit concert.
Martin Luther King.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm. Martin
definitely.
Luther King was an enemy of the FBI. Anybody who wants actual peace and love, and the only way to do that is to destroy capitalism. And liberals like capitalism, so no matter how they pretend to be good, the only ones they can placate are the right, because the left doesn't want capitalism. Like you can make social safety nets and things. That's how they placate that, but they would much prefer the neoliberal privatize everything and make money for the rich. And that's why fishhook theory is more accurate than horseshoe theory. I actually have a video on horseshoe theory myself on
Mhm.
my channel.
And
Hmm.
and also kind of mentioning, I think like a little bit like what I was saying in the beginning of the stream when it comes to cartoon humor, because especially with cartoon culture and even with the art of puppetry and the theater with it, it used to be
Hmm.
very anti-authoritarian and anti-establishment, and that's most certainly the kind of art that I'm most certainly influenced by, and
Hmm.
there was a lot of that in pop culture, and and the thing is like 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 you don't see that much anymore today, And but it wasn't necessarily like many of them were like clearly leftists, but it's like kind of like what was liberal back then. There were definitely a lot more left leaning and a lot more open to criticizing, where like a lot of the stuff from the past
Well,
would be
anarchism has been around
reformed and
for
everything like that for modern times. So it's like like they would take like say a show or something like that was like very anti-authoritarian, anti-establishment, and they were going to reboot it. They're going to take all that stuff out and they're going to make it cute so it sells. And they
exactly because they want to make money. And the thing about capitalism is, even if you don't want to do that, you still have to make money. So you literally, no matter how anti-capitalist you want your message to be, in order for it to exist in capitalism, it has to make a profit. So, dismantling capitalism is not a very profitable endeavor.
Yeah, but however, I mean, before, like, people would do it in different ways when they worked within the system. Today, it's, like, impossible. Like, for example, even shows on Nickelodeon, cartoons on Nickelodeon, like, I was watching, like, the Angry Beavers. There was, like, an episode where they were, like, literally, taking on the police in one of their final episodes.
That's awesome. And I didn't know that. That's crazy. Yeah. I did not know that. I'll have to look that up.
In early Rugrats episodes, seasons 1, 2, 3, there was definitely kind of an edge to it. But Paul Germain and the original writers basically got fired. And then by season 4 onwards, the show was cute because one of the show creators just couldn't stand these writers. And one of them who worked for The Simpsons being on there wanting to be satirical. And also, even today, it really seems like satire is kind of, especially with the animations kind of dying out. Like, I just heard, I think yesterday that Trey Parker and Matt Stone of South Park just got this $1 billion deal to do 14 movies and 16, like 6 more years. 14 South Park movies for Paramount Plus and 6 more seasons of South Park. And I feel that South Park has went downhill a long time ago. I mean,
well, the thing is, it's very, they have to make it in a week. So, they make it very thing. However, now that they're on a streaming service and it's no longer on TV, it might actually go back to being kind of good, since they can kind of, their episodes are now sort of for, anyone who wants to watch it whenever, rather than watching it the day it comes out.
Well, I don't know. I mean, a similar situation went with Spitting Image, because Spitting Image got revived for BritBox.
Yeah, I just found them recently.
And basically, the original, because I did several essays on Spitting Image, and there was a 1992
for
book.
School.
Oh no, BreadTube.
Oh really?
Yeah.
I should check that out because I don't use BreadTube very much. Is it like blockchain kind of done? I'm gonna actually check it out. Let's see, breadtube.tv, because I would probably watch it more. If I got used to it. So this is obviously it, right? I think I follow you on there. I don't remember if I have a channel. Your name is look, there's tons of people.
Yes.
Yeah. This guy, Anarchpack, Azure Scapegoat, Bad Empanada, everybody. This is great. Look, Big Joel's on here. Can you make it so that your videos automatically upload to BreadTube when you put them on YouTube? Oh, Chebo's here too.
Yeah.
Counterpoint.
Because there's something there's something on BreadTube that they're doing now, which is a PeerTube instance, and I do have a PeerTube instance on there too, which is great because with PeerTube, there's less censorship than, YouTube, no ads, which is great.
It says you can upload stuff, but you said you needed to be invited in order to join BreadTube? Or no?
Yeah, I mean, because if you look at the information on the bottom, they talk about like who runs.
Oh, they actually link you to your YouTube video. That's incredible.
Yeah, I mean,
that's awesome. I just clicked the video.
There's some people who are on YouTube, but there's a PeerTube instance because that's coming up next. It might go into a PeerTube instance or PeerTube only in the future, I'm not quite sure what's happening
Hmm.
with that. I guess we have to wait and see. But PeerTube, for those who don't know, it's definitely the future of social
Online video.
media. And that's something
Yeah.
I definitely mention, as well as EJ on the
Mhm.
live stream that
Hmm.
we're on,
That we were on.
because
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that.
because I was a part of the YouTube walkout of 2019, and
Me too.
yeah, yeah, and I know what I was doing was I was helping promoting PeerTube, as well as Mastodon, and I also did a couple satires too on my show. Um, like
That's awesome.
one of them was basically I had a character who was kind of, because that was around the time of Copa, and basically Copa was
Hmm.
like saying, cartoons are just for kids, and people are like, no, cartoons are for kids. And since I do cartoons and
Cartoons
animation
can be.
and
Hmm.
puppetry, and especially for adults, I was going to challenge that. So I did this cute animated character who basically came
Hmm.
up and stick the middle finger up, but was censored by
Hmm.
YouTube, and the character goes to jail, Google jail.
Yeah, pretty much.
And I think that's on the
When you.
PeerTube instance on BreadTube. I have best of combination on the PeerTube instance on BreadTube and
Mhm.
things like that. I'm slowly like building up that PeerTube instance library, and I
Yeah,
actually,
I really think that you would
yeah, like
build an
right on
audience
the
very quickly
orange
if you
part.
made shorts.
Like
Which
if
orange
you
part
see,
here?
yeah, yeah, the orange,
Mhm.
yeah,
There you
because
are.
I like PeerTube better because YouTube is filled with ads and stuff. Where here,
Hmm.
there's no ads. And then, of course, with
Yeah.
content ID and stuff, you show a commercial, then they're gonna like strike your YouTube and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
literally. And they show commercials even if you're not monetized now.
Yeah, but on here
Um,
they don't, which is great. And
yeah,
it's ran by
yeah.
leftists and anarchists and socialists, so it's
Mhm.
secure.
The thing is, a lot of people are on YouTube, so I really think that because your YouTube is so you have so many videos, you are just ripe for building an incredibly large audience very quickly. I believe if you put your stuff on the shorts, because the reason these have so few views is because they're not, I guess, classified as shorts. I think you can immediately change them to shorts, like you don't even have to re-upload them if you just go into the title and you put hashtag shorts in the title. If I'm not
Sure.
mistaken, you can literally do that, and you will immediately get a lot more views on all these videos.
Sure, but I'm not planning on really showing any clips to in the
We don't
stream
have to.
either. Right.
I'm just saying I don't. Why I'm curious as to why you don't do that personally, because I feel like you would
Well,
build an audience very quickly.
oh well, I like it to basically be a surprise because mainly because it's basically a 15-year-old show. There's like so much stuff, and also too there's
Most
a
of it
lot of,
is up to date though. I mean,
yeah,
some of these were uploaded
and
less
also
than a
like I
month.
mentioned on PeerTube, there's no ads or anything like that. So I mean, if I was going to show some clips, I would rather do it through the PeerTube instance. So I mean, we're going to show some clips. I would rather do it through the PeerTube instance, actually,
Yeah,
in my
we can
opinion.
show things on PeerTube. Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
what's a good one? I don't think I can share audio for some reason though. Let me try
Oh,
it.
well, we
Let's
could
click
show
this one.
the visuals most certainly.
Yeah. I can
So
hear it. Can you? You can't hear it,
no, I
right?
can't. But this was a topical
Mhm.
one. We could just show the
Yeah, it
visuals.
was within the last
This is
couple
a
of months.
topical
Yeah,
one.
I would love. Hmm.
Relating to what happened on January. Now, here's what's
Yeah.
interesting. This was made pretty much maybe 2 or 3 days after what happened. So I made sure to make this
Mhm.
as fast as possible.
Wow,
So
that's
it would be
incredible. Yeah,
topical.
this. It was uploaded what on like the 7th or the 8th or something. How soon
Uh,
did you upload it?
yeah, like
It
around
says
that
two
time.
months ago. It's not important. Yeah,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
made it. I would love to find out if I can make. I don't understand why it can't. Why it can't. I can't hear. I would love to share your audio. Let me. I don't know. Maybe there's a way to fix it. I can't do that right now though for some reason. Um, but yeah, so Erica Crooks. That's how
Crooks.
it's. Yeah, Erica Crooks. Forgive me.
Aren't we all?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, right. Aren't we all? Aren't we just terrorists? To be fair, honestly, terrorism is literally, it just means political like violence. So, if you were to, you know, I mean, you're not really a terrorist if you throw a milkshake in the actual sense, but in the typical sense. But you technically would be committing terrorism, especially if you were to shut down a plant. I mean, literally, legally, it's terrorism to block a pipeline, even though it's very good. But the thing is, a lot of old patriotic I forget who it was. I think it was John Adams or somebody who says, from time to time, the tree of liberty must be watered with the blood of tyrants and patriots.
Yeah,
I think
I mean,
that's.
I'm a pacifist myself, but I mean, I
I,
just
I
believe
would like
in
to be as well.
I'm all for, I think everyone's doing, whatever they can in their own way. I
Mhm.
mean, I'm
Yeah,
the sort who just kind of, either hide under the bed or just kind of do things
yeah,
culturally
I'm.
because,
Mhm. I'm pretty pacifistic myself, but I understand that what must be done must be done. But I think violence is absolutely not the answer. I think it is the least popular thing. However, I mean, in third world countries, given their material conditions, violence typically has to be because they are imperialized and everything like that. But since we don't live in a third world country, unfortunately, within the system is the least violent way to do it. However, it's not very fast, but it is a lot more reliable because, if it works. If it works, because it can be a lot more. You stay on brand and whatnot. That's why I'm very pro the Black Lives Matter and everything. I actually want to get into politics myself so that I can create as much um, change as possible the way, because frankly if you could become governor or something, you start to control taxes, and you can put taxes into things like Medicare, or Medicare for all, but call it something else. Whatever taxes your state or local thing has, you can create infrastructure and things like that.
yeah,
um,
I mean, I
mhm,
guess like for me, I kind of work with my own strengths. I consider myself a cultural anarchist, like, um,
mhm,
in the sense of things such as, with the arts, spirituality, philosophy, and that
mhm.
sort. But at the same time, I'm anti-fascist, and
Absolutely. Well, you're anarchist.
yeah,
Anarchist is almost
yes,
without saying anti-fascist, but anti-fascism doesn't mean violence. It's not like
right,
it can, but they aren't synonymous. It
right,
just anti-fascism just means whatever you can do to dissuade fascism. I think that the freedom of speech is absolutely important.
hmm,
However, the paradox of tolerance is, of course, that if you are tolerant to everything, intolerance breeds and it chokes at everything else. You have to weed the garden, as it were.
hmm,
And I think that the solution to the paradox of tolerance for free speech is context. You have the potential to show what fascism is. So we don't want to create fascism, but I don't think that it should be illegal to show what fascism is. However,
right,
it should be illegal to preach fascism as if it's a good
right,
idea.
yeah,
You
and
can. Mhm,
yeah, like what was mentioned in the non-compete live stream. There's definitely hate crime, especially
I'll put a link
online,
to it too.
especially YouTube, most certainly
Yeah,
YouTube,
the
and
pipeline.
social media, and there's
Facebook
definitely,
was a big one too.
yeah,
All that that's where QAnon was born. Basically, was Facebook. That's why it caught on so much.
and I think,
And Trump.
even before Trump, I'm starting to
Mhm,
recognize more and more it's a lot of it's politically motivated, and especially through fascist circles, most certainly, and
mhm,
it's very ignorant because of the division of just the whole pseudoscience and pseudo history, and it's all
mhm,
just a bunch of hate and fear,
mhm,
lies, basically, and excuses to hate people and see people as inferior, and they're not.
mhm,
Everyone's equal to one another, and that's very scary,
In
especially
certain ways, yeah.
to marginalized people such as myself. I'm a trans woman,
Absolutely.
someone who has
Mhm.
been diagnosed.
Intersectionality. We all have our things. We have
Yeah,
white privilege, the two of us, but you're a trans woman and an anarchist. I'm a leftist as well. We all have our positives and our negatives. That's what intersectionality is. And I
yeah,
think that the reason, if I may, that fascism, as crazy and we would much like to believe that humans would have better ideas. I think the reason it spreads is because it's just simple and easy. It's so much easier to just say it's blank's fault rather than dialectical materialism and material conditions and everything. The thing is, leftism and intellectualism takes a minute. You have to learn it. You can't just shout it on a billboard. Some of the things you can, like Black Lives Matter, which is great. And I found it funny that, interestingly enough, the Black Lives Matter movement started, I believe, under Obama. But it went away kind of because it wasn't so big, and then Trump came, and then it started to explode, and then COVID happened and everything. So it's much stronger now, and I'm happy to see it continuing to go. Under Biden, it has, of course, calmed down a bit because the liberals think that, just as, when we elected Obama, racism was over, now that,
yeah.
now that Trump's out of office, it's all good. But that's, in fact, not true because, again, most votes for Biden were just votes against Trump. If anyone who wasn't Trump would have been, I mean, if ideally Bernie would have been I would have voted for Bernie, but the only, but who, unfortunately, I'm not a blue no matter who, like, idealist, but I would definitely vote for any, Democrat over a politician, over a Republican. It's funny because, well, it's not funny because that, but it's another thing is, did you have something to say? I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. I was gonna say that basically, yeah, the easy answers basically, divide
It's
and
quick,
conquer for,
easy, emotional.
all the political problems, that's given by the capitalist ruling classes, and easy answers, in the book basically, and all the negative manifestos, most certainly.
Mhm.
But I think it also ties in with authoritarianism and capitalism and the conditions. The system is rigged, and especially when it comes to the conditioning of toxic masculinity, which ties in with all that,
Yep.
because
Mhm. It's patriarchy,
just
and
and
it's
yes,
all
yes, and
levels.
just the privilege
Hierarchy.
of it all, because
Mhm.
how they go about saying things like, oh, the image of God, men are the image of
Boomer
God, or men are superior, like white cishet men are superior to everyone else, and everyone
patriarchy.
is inferior and they're subhuman or whatever. And
Mhm. They are the default,
right,
as it
right,
were.
yeah,
Mhm.
and
That's actually. Mhm.
and so
Go
it's
ahead.
like, like, so this whole idea of the American dream, this kind of, you know just almost like the sugar coated version of the 1950s, like kind of industrial
Mhm.
kind of America kind of lifestyle, like kind of sitcom, kind of Leave It to
Mhm.
Beaver kind of situation. And then they
Yep.
realize that's not reality. Hey, what's going on? And then they say, it's them, they did it. And then they start
Yep.
attacking people.
Duality.
They attack people with
Mhm.
disabilities. They attack people, LGBTQ plus people, anyone that's different from them. And it's scary because it's like,
Mhm.
they hate people just because they exist. And that's
Yeah,
frightening.
but it's literally they project their fears onto those who are affected by it most, ironically, and blame them. They create these problems and then they blame those who are most affected by it. Like, it's not trans people's fault that transphobia exists, like, and yet they would try to convince you that.
And I know,
uh,
as a victim of hate crime and all that, I know exactly how that feels. And that is just like terrifying whenever, that happens. And, and that happens
yeah.
constantly. And even like standing up and just, like standing up for
Mhm.
myself and even like talking about this, I'm like literally, being brave enough to just, stand up against this, but I
Mhm.
feel that it's better to do that than to just, hide in bondage, because, I'm not doing this
Absolutely.
just for myself, but other people like me, you know,
Precisely, because we're
like
all
love
connected.
is
That's why I
stronger.
reached out to you.
Love is
It literally
stronger.
is that. I meant to say this earlier, but what's crazy about love being a vibration and an actual like thing that exists within the universe and is not just an idea, is the fact that happiness is like, hi, you're the best, whatever, you know, mad or screw you and all that shit and like hate crimes and everything like that. But what love is the ability to go, oh fuck you, you fucking asshole, like between friends. Love converts the negativity into positivity. Now, of course, it also, utilizes everything. But that's why yin and yang exists, because we need a teeny tiny bit of antagonism in order to, for the niceness to revolve around. Negative energy or fear actually has more mass than positive energy. That's why literally time flies when you're having fun. It's not just it's part, it is a thing that happens in your mind like a placebo, but it's also literally true. When you sit in your room and you're scared and you go into a fetal position and you bring yourself together, you are literally focusing on your suffering, you are actually making time pass more slowly for you too. Whereas when you become light and love, it just smoothly moves faster. It's literally true.
And definitely. And also too about spirituality, there's like toxic positivity and like those who capitalize on spirituality and those who use spirituality as a platform for hate or exploitation. I mean, one of the things they would use is like toxic positivity. But the thing is, like, real spirituality, at least in my opinion, I mean, there's like, soul searching and healing, and sometimes it's not all, like sometimes love, there's a healing process before and sometimes you break
not
down
always
in tears
obviously go to the doctor
because you have to go through the wounds. I mean, some go through
that's why psychedelics are so good.
I mean, some can go through a therapist or that but there's also from where I come from, I guess, with New Thought, New Age spirituality, and it's all as simple as basically healing with just love energy, and
Absolutely.
because because love is just very, I mean, hate and fear, it's just very, very tight and very complex.
Dense.
Love lets go, and it's just very calm, and it feels better, and so it's all those things.
And it's also why when we have conversations about spirituality, you talk about like sacred geometry and Torah, that there sometimes eventually comes to a point where it's like, what do I do now? It's like, oh yeah, that's true, but like it doesn't affect the fact that I still can't afford to eat bread, at the moment or whatever, or these people are still, causing hate crimes or whatever. The thing is, you utilize that information to use your free will to cultivate potential energy into creating things, which is, why we're here.
Because one thing I want to say is like there's usually kind of two modes. From the way how I see it is like there's definitely the continuation of helping make the world a better place for not only oneself but for others too. But there's also self-love, and then just kind of that meditation state of because one has to be good to oneself. And I think that's one of the things I try to do, especially with art. And I think with satire too, I think satire is kind of a misunderstood art form. But in my opinion, there's this quote that I love, which is, art should disturb the comfortable and comfort the disturbed. And
Absolutely.
I really think
makes you feel things.
That's what it's about, because satirists, someone could see satires reinforcing negativity, but that's not true at all, because most satirists, deep down, they really want to make the world a better place. It's kind of like those who write like literature horror, they're just bringing awareness about the subject. But with like satire, it could be funny or it could be serious, but they exaggerate it. And
we laugh so we don't cry. If we weren't laughing, we'd be crying.
And when we feel better, we laugh, out of joy.
Exactly. It creates joy from pain. And another reason that I believe it's somewhat misunderstood, as you said, is probably because, people use satire as an excuse to, be racist or whatever. They're like, oh, I was kidding. It was a joke, bro.
Yeah, like a great example is there's Ryan McPherson of Bum Fights, and because about 20 years ago, this guy, like, he was making like videos of basically
I'm
abusing
helping them.
homeless
I'm
people.
paying them.
And then he
Total
had a
abuse.
whole DVD line called In Decline. And where is this person to get? Where is this person today? This person calls himself an anarchist, and he says that In Decline is an anarchist art collective. And so whenever I see that, I try my best to comment, hey, no, this guy is from Bum Fights. All someone has to do is do research, and he doesn't care. He never apologized. So I don't know. I think anarchists should be aware.
I absolutely believe in forgiveness, but if he's not, changing his thing, he's just lying. He's just using it as a cover.
He has a website, and it's like both is on there. So I don't know, but I think it's good to be aware about that.
He might think he's an anarchist, but he might be what's in, an ANCAP, which is not a real anarchist. They're just a neo-feudalist. Yeah. They call them, they're, a lot like the Nazis said they were socialist, but they're not. And, North Korea says it's democratic, so people can lie.
There is like kind of problematic people sometimes in leftist circles where it's kind of like, oh, it's just about freedom. That means they can, we can slur and things like that. It doesn't matter. It's just a joke. And like, I notice a lot of people say how like, oh, it's just cringe culture. But, to me, it's kind of like, no, really, like, what is this about? Like, it's not just about freedom, it's liberty, equality, and solidarity. It's not just one or another. It's all three. It's a philosophy.
Mutual aid. Democracy and mutual aid is the only true anarchism.
Right.
Well, anyway, it's been about an hour and a half. It's been good talking to you.
Yes,
we'll talk again soon, I think. Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
have a good one.
Thank you for having me on.
All right. Bye, guys. Erica Crooks, our links are in the description. Please check her out. And you said PeerTube too?
Yes. If it's in the live chat and descriptions, most certainly. And also is the, link to the Non-Compete Live video, which we were on.
I will add that. I'll put that in a linked comment. In
Twitch comment. Version too, for those who are on Twitch. Maybe?
I don't really know much about how to use Twitch, but there are. Let's see. I believe in the description for this, I put your thing in there, but I'll put it in the what's the word, in the chat. So I'll just grab your links really quick from the chat really fast. All right, so I'm going to add it to the chat right now, and here we go. And I'll even add it to the YouTube chat too, because why not? All right, so check out Erica Crooks, all those wonderful things. I do suggest, again, if you want people to follow you, I think if you just add the hashtag shorts to your videos that are already up, they'll be seen by tons of people. It's already in the chat, says the person watching us on Twitch. Anyway, couldn't think of that word for some reason. Anyway, it's been fun, everybody. See ya.
Yes.